Okay, let's go. I'm here to talk to you about a player, which is a small library helping you writing application using REST, using Play and Scala. So first, who in the room is using Play first? Okay, small of them, and using Play with Scala or Play with Java. Play with Java, okay. So first, sorry for the ones that are using Play with Java, because here it's a lot of tricks, and the library is based on the Scala feature, just what we saw in the previous talk. There are many stuff that you can do with the type system, and that's what we are going to use here. 2 words about me. I did a lot of development in a lot of languages. And I came to Scala some a year ago, and I found when I was using Play something lacking, and I started Player to handle that. And I'm working for 26 slides, where one of our motto is do more with less. So we try to reduce the time of development and to be able to do more interesting stuff. So small things about REST APIs. REST API are just an idea somewhere is to say, okay, let's use HTTP as the protocol between our client and server and use all the features of HTTP and don't try to write your own protocol. So if you need to update something in your database or whatever, don't write a JSON that says, I want to update this. But use HTTP and HTTP method that says, please do an update. And everything is already there in the protocol. You don't need to have a JSON that says the method I want to call is update. There is a standard HTTP update method. So HTTP offers a kind of naming of resources and a lot of standard methods. So delete, update, get something, create something. There are return codes, standard stuff. If there are an error, the request is incorrectly done. And you can pass also metadata using headers. So that's all about HTTP, and REST API are based on that. Okay, PlayFramework offers you already a lot of stuff to do REST APIs. So here I got typical codes using routes and a controller, and if you have a look. PlayFramework gives you already URI mappings, so you can define if I access that URI, what controller method I should call, even with some parameters. It offers you a way to parse the body of your request, so something really easy. And it offers you some common response types, so you can just return, create it, and everything is done for you. So that's what PlayFramework offer you. And but it can be quite verbose on the routing file. So we tried to do something better. So in PlayFramework, I just took, it's exactly the same slide as the previous one, but a little bit reduced, because here I just did something with a company. You want to get a list of companies and so on. And if you want to add a method to update a company, save it, you have to add something in the root files, add something in the controller. And if you want to do a delete, again, exactly the same. You have to do a delete in the root file, implement delete in the controller, and every time you have to verify that the ID exists, you have to map it to not found and so on. So there's a lot of common code, a lot of patterns that are coming. What you try to do with Player is just to reduce that. So have your root file defined. Here is the entry point of my REST API, and then the rest of the code is almost the same. Use commands, PlayFramework patterns, but simplified and where we can do stuff for you is done. So let's have a look at that. So first thing we did is simplify the mapping. Second thing is to unify all the method names. So if you want to create something, if you want to support HTTP posts, you will have to implement a create method. If you want to support HTTP GET on a resource name, you will get you have to implement a list, delete, and so on. So every methods are have a specific name. Next things we did is instead of getting an ID in your read methods or write methods, you get an instance of the object that you will manipulate. So the from ID is just write once, and then that's all. Okay, it means that your code will be a little bit easier to read and easier to maintain, of course. And last stuff is, as we defined only one entry point, we have to create some objects to group together all your controllers and all your resource. And so as we have an object, we can just add some methods on them, and then you can get some introspection. We have stuff available to do lists of all the resources, all the controllers that we have implemented, and so you can just generate code from that. And so it's really, really faster to develop, and you just have to write once the code generation, and it's always good. So it's even easier to maintain and to read. I will explain you at the end what it gave us as a benefit. Okay. I will go a little bit deeper and show you some code and how it works and what the code generation can offer you. First, in the rest of the code and player, at first we got some way to we needed some way to standardize the resource naming, the URI. And so first we separated between resource and identified resource. So a resource, for example, a company is a resource, and a specific company, my company, for example, 26 is an instance of that company. So we have that kind of mapping in our URL, and we will be able to use that in player. Okay, how does player handle request? Well, first, it checks if your URL match your resource, then checks if it's an identified resource, and then checks if you have implemented your method. So if you have implemented the create method, for example, it means that you support HTTP post, and so it can call, if you did a post on company, it can call the correct create method on that company. Okay. If that method is not implemented, it will return you 405 HTTP answer. It's something that Play doesn't do by default. Play just says, okay, I don't know about that kind of URL, and it returns you 404. Here we are a little bit more specific on the error. If you have an identified resource, the ID is not found, then you will get 404 probably. In fact, we just let Play do its work on that case. We did some, I said we standardized on the method mapping. So here is the list of Scala traits you have to implement to get the support of HTTP methods. So if you do a resource, implement the resource create trait, you will get support for post. Resource delete, you will get support for HTTP delete method. And then, of course, on the other side, you have to implement some Scala method. So it's called delete or create or whatever. Let's get some look at the code. So first I will go with the example. So what we'll do here, as a small example, I will have a list of colors that all have an ID and a RGB value. And so we'll just manipulate the color as our resource now. So get a list of colors, add them, update, delete, and so on. So have a look at what I've defined here. So I just defined a small color view. color case class with all this identifier, name, RGB value. Okay. And I've created, everything is, those colors. I also have a color container that stores stuff in my play cache. So just for the example. Okay, here I have a typical player controller. So what we have here, it's a resource. A resource is always a controller, a play controller. So we can probably write it like that. It's a controller with a resource, but okay, since resource already extends controller, we can just remove this. Okay, it's a resource of color, and we implement color resource read. Okay, so it's a resource, so we have to implement a from ID. So we can, if I give it an URI, I can convert that URI to a color. So here I will get, I just go in my container and retrieve it from my cache. Okay. Since we implement, we said we implement resource read, then we have to implement list and read methods. So here I just convert my list of colors to JSON and the read a specific color to JSON. So let's have a look at what it does. If I call my API color, let's try it. Okay, I did HTTP option, so it returns me. I'm allowed to call get methods on that URI. It means that also player implements the option for you. So if you want to talk with REST clients, it's really easy to just explore the possibilities of your REST API just by doing this. If I do it also on the one, I will also be able to do a get, and if I get that specific color, I will get some JSON data. Okay, really simple stuff. Let's get some. Let's add some more HTTP methods. Okay. Oh, I forgot something. I have to show you something. Okay. The play root file, I forgot about it. So it's just pointing everything that starts with API is routed to application API. Okay, and application API just says I have an API router, and to that one I add my color controller. That's all. Okay. And how does it know that? If I go back to my browser, oops. How does it know that it's /API/color? In fact, in my color controller, I just say the name of that controller, and the way it's mapped in my API is color. Okay, you will see that it's that name is used when we are doing introspection. So I added here create and write. So we have a create and write methods that are just standard play one. Except that our write takes a color as a parameter instead of just an ID. Okay, for the rest, we use standard play stuff, so body parsing, standard thread answers, and so on. Oops, if I go back to my browser, just hope now my compiler is doing its work behind. Okay, I did HTTP option on that one, and now I'm allowed to do a post, so I can create new colors, and I'm probably allowed to also, if I take color one, I'm probably also allowed to do get and put. Oops, did I forget something? Oh, yeah, I don't wrote a delete method. Sorry. Okay. To get something, if I want to try those methods from here, my simple REST client, I will have to write the JSON manually and so on, and to explore that, it's a little bit cumbersome. So I will just add something. I said we can generate stuff for you. So I will uncomment 2 entry points here in my root file, and in my application I will uncomment 2 things also. So what we have here, based on my API, so based on, in fact, the object that I create here, I can just generate the Swagger documentation for that application. And I also have written a small generator that generates a JavaScript function that does jQuery calls on my URL. So I can also call them from a jQuery stuff, from jQuery. So let's have a look at what it does. Oops. If I load that URL, remember I mapped API docs to the Swagger documentation. I get the whole Swagger documentation generated for me. I didn't write anything manually. Everything is generated for me from my controller. jQuery stuff also. Oops. Let's get it a little bit bigger. So here I got some JavaScript code generated for me, and I don't have to write it again. And then if I use it in my if I use it in my HTML page, I can it will do get for me. Oops. Let's do it using this. Where it is? Okay, whatever. You console. Okay, so you see it does the get and so on the correct URL for me. It's really simple to write the code, and if I have a look at that HTML code, in fact, it's really simple. Let's get the JavaScript code, for example, for the write. And just instead of doing jQuery or get, for example, get typing my URL /API color and so on. Manually, I just do, okay, let's use my API, use a color on that, and call a write or call a get. For example, here I take the list, and so it maps exactly my play function. I get exactly the same code as in my in jQuery as in my play controller. So it's really easy, and it's done just because we have one object in player that gives you metadata about your controller, and you can generate stuff automatically. If you want a little bit more advanced stuff, let's try something more advanced, since I have time. Well, of course, if I do, I don't know, if I take the green color and I say, no, it's light green, okay, probably if I do an update, it will do a put for me, and it will be renamed and so on. Okay, let's add a color. Oops. Oops. What is this? Oops. Refreshed, it's added, and so on. It will do a post, and that will do a create, and so on. Okay. More advanced stuff. I have also kind of a CRM controller. So it's we have a person, a company is with employees under them. So how does it work? My person controller. So it's a REST CRUD controller is a shortcut to say, okay, it's a resource with create, read, update, and delete. So that's just a shortcut in player. So here I implemented my person controller just like the color controller. Exactly the same for the company. Okay, so we have person and companies, and we also have employees. Employees are person linked to a company. So an employee doesn't exist by itself. It needs to be under a company. And so what we have is, in this case, our controller is not an object anymore. So if we have a look here, my company controller is an object. Here it's a case class. Okay, and our employee controller takes a company as parameter. Okay, when I will instantiate that one, I will get something, I will get a controller with a company already there. Okay, and so if I take the list of employees for a specific company, I can just filter using the company ID that I got in my constructor. Okay, how it works in my application. So here, I will uncomment this, but not this. Okay, so here I just define, oh, I forgot something, oops. I just define an API router, so it's a subpart of my my API, and I call it CRM. So it's just a kind of namespace to put in there everything that relates to a company and employees. I add my person controller to that, just like I did with the color controller. Okay, but I also add a company controller that has an employee controller underneath, and I give it a constructor, a way to construct an employee controller. So given an employee company, okay, that comes from my company controller, given a company, how to build an employee controller. Here, since my employee controller is a case class, I just have to call to write it like that. Okay, I add this subrouter to my global API, and hopefully, first, if I have a look at the jQuery function, everything is generated for me. Person, employee, company, employee, whatever, everything comes in. Okay, exactly the same for my Swagger documentation. Oops. I get everything done for me, and if I do a get, for example, on company one, oops, and employees, I should get a list of IDs, just really easy. Okay, that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. Okay, 7 minutes, quite good. Okay, that's it. What I wanted to say, okay, and let's go back to this one. What I wanted to say with that code generation done for you is that in previous projects, I worked with Grace application, and it was really painful to just add, for example, we are using AngularJS on the client side. And if you want to just add a controller, add URL, and then be able in your Angular application to call that specific URLs you just created, you have to add your Angular resource somewhere, add your Angular controller in your JavaScript loading, add your URL mapping somewhere in Grails, add your controller code, and so on. It's really painful, and sometimes you just add something. It's exactly the same for Play. Sometimes you add a new controller, you don't forget about the URL mapping, but you start trying calling stuff from your API, your client side code, and then it doesn't work. Why? Because maybe you forgot to add the post method in your routing, or you forgot something in somewhere. Okay, and I cannot say that player reduce our time by 2, but sometimes you don't have. It's now almost a year. I don't think about writing the mapping between my JavaScript code and my Play code. Now, if I just type a create method with I implement the resource create trait in my controller, it just works. The routing is done for me. The JavaScript generation is done for me. I can just test it and just call it. It works. Okay. So if you want to contact me, I have info about player. The player address is on the slide. Documentation code is on GitHub. And if you want to see it live, we have a small application called Envelope that will help you manage your whiteboards and post-its, and you can try it on envelope.com. And everything, if you ever look at the code, you will see a player in action. That's it. If you have questions, remarks, whatever, how it works internally, I can answer now. Thank you. Any question from Whoa. I don't see. Okay, yeah?
So we have, I don't know if it's part of the API, but how do you add the authorization?
It's really easy. There are two stuff that we have in player for that. The first one is play. Okay, so if you use Secure Social, for example, you can just use the standard Secure Social stuff to help you doing the authorization. Okay, another part that we just added, but I don't have. Maybe I have some example somewhere. We added also filtering on the controller itself. So if I take my color controller, maybe. Oh, I forgot about something also. You can with resource filter, I think it's called. Yeah, resource root filter. In that case, you have to just implement some kind of function that will analyze the routing. Okay, so you just write a filter once, and it will filter out all the requests that are incoming before calling the correct method in your controller. And so you can do authorization, permissions, extract that kind of stuff from your controller directly. And in fact, we are using that to do permission-based stuff, where we just, using the player reflection API, okay, using that, we can extract all the existing URLs and do permissions that guys may read that kind of URL, that other one may call write methods on those one and so on. So using that filter, just implementing one function, it takes a request as input and just say, okay, you can go through that request and then a player will do the rest, or you just stop the request and do whatever you want. Does that answer? There are some examples, some documentation. I don't remember exactly what the the existing in my demo. What's the existing class that does this? But it exists. Very easy. Oh, it's easier without the lights. No more questions? Then I can unplug. Thank you, everybody.